Hello friends and welcome back to another video where today we will be discussing how will the rings be forged and distributed in the Rings of Power Season 2 and whether the One Ring will be forged this season, and if not, how will that work. So yes, there is a lot to discuss, but before we get into that, make sure to like and subscribe with the notification bell switched on. So it is confirmed that the 19 rings will be forged in the Rings of Power Season 2, and there has been a lot of content and promo from Amazon around this. Even a behind the scenes video looking at the creation of the Dwarven Rings of Power and Celebrimbor learning to forge, and in there were some cool little things as well. But from the trailer we can see Celebrimbor drops 9 rings over the fire, and of course this makes sense as being the 9 rings for men. Maybe he is trying to destroy them here. That is quite interesting. But will these rings be distributed this season? It looks like right now the rings of men won't be distributed, as Sauron's focus was on men more in season 1. Here in season 2 he looks more focused on the elves and dwarves, and maybe next season he can get to having the 9 rings of men being distributed. Maybe some in Numenor, some in Rhûn, and other places yet to be seen, potentially Pelargir. Maybe instead in this season we see the future 9 ring bearers, and then before Sauron gets to them, which will be in season 3. Some potential ideas for future human ring bearers seems one to be Wodreg, that's whether he survives this season, Theo, and maybe a potential new Pelargir character in season 2, as that would make sense as it is a new settlement of men that we will visit, and there are 9 people needed, so it makes sense having one from there. Then in Rhûn, maybe through the Stranger we might see some new human Rhûn characters. Of course you know we have Kumul from the lore, who was the Easterling king, so maybe at some point we'll get introduced to him. Time will tell. Then from Numenor, it makes sense for Valandil, Kemen, and even maybe Iardian to be future ring bearers, but probably Valandil less so. We do know one of the ring bearers from Numenor was a sorcerer in the lore, so maybe we're still yet to see that one. But it seems like they are creating the rings in the order of the ring poem. So in season 1 we have the creation of the 3 elven rings, and now in season 2 we will see the 7 dwarven rings being forged and the 9 rings of men. So from the footage and promo we have seen so far, it seems like Durin and Disa get an invitation from Celebrimbor or Annatar in Eregion, probably on the behalf of Annatar actually, who is pulling the strings from behind the scenes, and in response he does end up travelling to the region, as you get more footage and shots of Durin the Fourth looking at Annatar creating the rings. Furthermore, it looks all but confirmed that Annatar will be going to Khazad-dûm to distribute the rings out and offer it as a gift. We even see Durin the Third look at his ring for the first time here, and maybe this is what ends up sending him over the edge, even though he is nearly getting there. Also, from the trailer and clips, it looks like Annatar is showing Durin the Fourth in the Fire the Forge a vision of the Balrog, and that is the clips of the Balrog we see potentially in the trailer. So maybe that is what Annatar uses to convince Durin and the other dwarves to take the Rings of Power, to help protect them and keep them strong from the Balrog. But in fact it could lead to their decline and make things worse with the Balrog instead. That is of course where the deception lies. The interesting here with Durin the Fourth and whether he takes a Ring of Power is interesting, because if he becomes a ring bearer, then throughout the show he could start to go a bit mad as well, just like his father. Or maybe his wife Disa will stop him and talk some sense into him, like she did at the end of season 1, where she consoled him after the argument with his father. Though it could be the reverse and Disa ends up becoming a ring bearer as well, who knows, though this is very unlikely in my opinion. Furthermore, Na'vi could also end up becoming a ring bearer as well, as it seems like his character is heavily involved with the politics in the second season, and could have been convinced by Celebrimbor, who is in turn being convinced and manipulated by Annatar, so maybe potentially even a chain reaction with Annatar pulling all the strings at the top. We actually also get to see probably one of the first interactions between Celebrimbor and Halbrand, where Celebrimbor asks him about the rings which will be at play here. So it looks like it won't take Annatar too much to convince Celebrimbor to create the rings of power, and it seems like he's more so building off Celebrimbor's ego, pride, and wanting to achieve success and eclipse his grandfather. But, the big question here is, does Sauron end up forging the One Ring in this season? Well, let's discuss. In the lore, the One Ring is created around the year 1600 of the Second Age, after he finishes creating the other Rings of Power and leaves Celebrimbor and Eregion to go to Mordor. But will he do that in the Rings of Power show? Well, one of the interesting questions and maybe dilemmas is, in the lore, Sauron forges the One Ring, sacks Eregion, and then after the Númenóreans save the day, he relinquishes himself and gives himself up to be captured, despite having the One Ring just be forged earlier and have all that power that he had just consolidated. So in the show, as it is condensed, Eregion will forge, the One Ring is forged, he's at his ultimate power, and then the Númenóreans come, but they'll probably have to condense this when Kiriato comes under the banner of Tar-Minastir in the middle of the Second Age, and then when Pharazôn's host comes and catches him. So instead it's going to be condensed, so he creates the One Ring, gets all this power, then instantly has to go to Númenor and relinquishes himself. Why would Sauron do that if he has so much power and has finally created the one thing he's been, being able to fully establish himself, and then he just hides it and goes to Númenor? So the Númenóreans saving the day at the Battle of Eregion and Pharazôn coming 1,000 years later, again mentioned, will probably be condensed in this new show's timeline. But then it will be interesting for average viewers who see this whole timeline of why create the One Ring and then instantly go to Númenor and not use it for so long. They would think, what's the point of the One Ring then if it's so powerful, if it's so useful to Sauron? Why would he not use it for so long and relinquish himself and almost give himself up? So maybe that's what they're thinking. Of course, this has also come because the way Tolkien wrote it, there's about a 2,000 year difference. So this is not a Tolkien problem, more a show problem that has come with the condensed timeline. So yeah, for average viewers, it just may not make a lot of sense, and also diminishes the nature and power of the One Ring. So maybe instead the show will go in the direction of having Sauron create it at some point into the Second Age, or into the third season, or when he comes back to Númenor. The real big stumbling point though is that Celebrimbor has to be alive when the One Ring is forged, surely. So him being deceived becomes a reality and visualized. So will Celebrimbor survive? Well, it seems like he's going to die in season 2, so this seems like a really tricky dilemma, and how the showrunners JD Penn and Patrick McKay will approach the creation of the One Ring, because of course it's so much better when Celebrimbor's alive and seeing it. But we will just have to wait and see. Do you think the One Ring will be forged in season 2? Let us know in the comments below. The Rings of Power season 2 is fast approaching, and we are getting a lot of new footage, and it seems like basically by the end, the simplest way is that Halbrand will go back into Eregion, probably in the form of Halbrand as we've seen in the clips released so far, and then transform into that elegant Annatar form that we've seen in so many of the promotional stills, and then from there on out he properly takes control of Eregion. And of course Khazad-dûm, because it looks like he actually enters Khazad-dûm and meets with King Durin, as we see in the new trailer. So there's quite a lot of deceptions, quite a lot of trickery, and it seems like this season, of course it is called the Rings of Power, will actually be focused on the rings. And just quickly before we wrap up around the rings, the 3 Elven rings, how will that dilemma plan out? It seems like the first 2 episodes will be heavily involved with what should they do with the rings, the Elven Rings of Power. And going forward, do they trust it? Do they not trust it? Do they believe that it's corrupted by Sauron? Because it seems like everyone believes that one of the Elven Rings of Power has Sauron's taint, which of course in the lore they're the only ones that are away from Sauron's taint. But it's interesting that he still believes that, which does make sense. And of course whether Gil-galad will accept the rings this early, Círdan as well. And it will ultimately end up with how will the ring bearers, the 3 ring bearers, feel once the One Ring is forged and they know they have been decepted and deceived. So we'll just have to wait and see. So thank you guys for watching, I really appreciate it. Make sure to tune in on Wednesday for our first live stream predictions panel. They were so great last year, happy to do them as well, and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. But until the next video, my friends, and of course, make sure to check out the Patreon. The link will be in the description as well, the first link there. We would really appreciate your support. But again, until the next video, my friends, goodbye.